Hello there. My name is Ryan, and welcome to my channel. Welcome to a beautiful day in the park. It is Saturday, and I like to get outside. I hope that you do as well. We live in a beautiful world. There's a lot of flowers in Southern California just blooming up right now, making their appearance, and it's a good idea to go catch them while you can. I hope wherever you are that you are hopeful, that you are alive, that you are filled with spirit, despite some of the dour news that we're surrounded by. I don't know about you, if you have roommates or family members or media figures who are constantly reminding you of how dangerous the world is, whether they're talking about terrorism or diseases like coronavirus, Covid-19. We live in a world where we're going to die very soon, you know. There's a lot of ancient metaphors that we live like the grass of the field, alive one day and gone the next. And whether we get taken by coronavirus or terrorists, most likely it'll be a car, your neighbor pulling out of the garage, statistically, or cancer or whatever. We're all gonna die. But before that happens, we're alive. And isn't it beautiful to be alive? Yes, it is. But it's only beautiful to be alive if you're not filled with fear. There's a great quote from the science fiction novel Dune. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the mind killer. Fear takes over your mind little by little. You open that door to fearful messages, the emotions, the dour looks on the faces of your neighbors who are absolutely frightened of life. And it creeps inside of you, and then you grow with fear. And if you ever look at your life, the happiest times of your life, the times where you were smiling and laughing, were not moments of your life that you were filled with fear, but filled with joy and love. And those are the opposites of fear. In fact, you could almost think of fear and love, fear and joy, fighting to sit on the throne of your heart. And you're sort of a neutral arbiter. You get to decide, which door am I going to open to? Now, sometimes we're afraid for good reasons, and our fear does actually help us live another day. But fear can become compulsive and also contagious. And I believe that today we are living in an atmosphere of fear that is somewhat drowning quite a lot of us. I recently read a statistic that suicides are higher than ever. I'm not trying to downplay the coronavirus. If you or your family out there are suffering from it, then I do hope that you guys get whatever relief you can. But now there's a lot of people suffering from the effects of our attempts to curb the coronavirus. People being evicted from their homes. People hitting the bottle harder than they've ever done. Puts strain on marriages, strains on families. I once heard from actually quite a few philosophers, from Freud to Huxley to Watts and quite a few others, that a lot of times mankind, particularly the West, because the West has this sort of attitude that we're going to control nature. It probably goes all the way back to Genesis, when God told man to go out and multiply and subdue the earth. We have this attitude that we're just going to make things right, but from those authors I just mentioned, a lot of times our efforts make things worse. Think back to the war on drugs. How many people, how many lives, how many families were impacted by the government trying to keep us from plants? Whether it was an herb like marijuana, or a mushroom like psilocybin, the government wanted to protect us from the spiritual revelations or the psychological distress that these religious sacraments, these plants, which man has been using for hundreds, if not thousands of years, we went to war on drugs. And America didn't just go to war on drugs in America. We went down to South America. We went all over the world. We exported this policy around the world because whatever America wants to do, the rest of the world better follow in line. And we've persecuted quite a lot of people who were doing these substances out of their own free will. No one was forcing them to. And if you look at some of what psychologists have said, why have so many people flock to drugs? Well, we live in a culture that is destroying the planet, that alienates us more and more from the work that we can do with our hands, from meaningful work like building houses and raising crops, to meaningless work like working in a factory talking to robots. We are not living healthy, my friends. Before COVID-19 showed up, suicides higher than they have been in the past. Depression, anxiety, running rampant throughout society. Toxic chemicals in the ocean. It's getting less safe to eat seafood. Mounds and mounds of plastic being found in the stomachs of whales. We like to see COVID-19 as this boogeyman enemy, and we can rally behind that. And I think sometimes it's good to find a common source to rally for or against. But we've been destroying this earth. We've been making this earth more toxic. We've caused a lot more destruction to ourselves. Look at how many people die every year from overdosing on drugs. How many people die every year from alcohol and other diseases that perhaps if they lived a better life with more happiness, because guys, I don't really care what you find in your biology textbooks. The mind and the body are connected. Look at the placebo effect. What you think that about a medicine will have an effect, an actual measurable effect. That's why drug companies always have to do a double-blind placebo test to really test whether or not the drug that they're manufacturing is effective, because quite a lot of the times the placebo, just thinking that something is working, actually has as much of an effect than actual medicine. Our minds and our body, the spirit and flesh, Descartes, he cut spirit and matter in two, and thus started Descartesian dualism. Cartesian dualism. Forgive me. Forgive my pronunciation, and if I bumble everything up, forgive me. I'm just talking off the cuff, but I'm talking truly and from my heart and from my mind. Descartes sliced the world into spirit and matter before it was unified, and the whole world was holy. The trees were holy. The mountains were holy. I heard a story about, I forget his name, he was a German ethnologist, quite famous. Jung has quoted him many times. He was a specialist in Africa. He knew more about African religions and African customs than any other scientist in the 1800s, maybe early 1900s as well. And he was traveling with some pygmies, and they were going through the jungle, going through the forest, and they ran out of meat, and he wanted more meat. And so he asked his pygmy guides, please, bring me a deer. I would like to eat deer. And the pygmies looked at him and said, huh? Just bring you a deer like that? And he said, yes. And they said, well, to bring you a deer, we will have to do it our way. And they climbed up to a high hill. They cleared the hill of the brush. They drew a picture of the deer in the dirt. Then, when the sun rose, They spent the whole night. They shot an arrow directly into the picture of the deer that they had drawn on the top of the hill that they had cleared, right in the neck. Then they could go out into the forest, which they did, to kill the deer. If you look at a lot of the way that our ancestors lived, the animals they killed, the plants they picked, the streams they drank from, the mountains they climbed, were holy, filled with spirit. Today, we bulldoze the mountains to build condos. We just throw the cows together in shitty ways of life, just back them up together. Not everyone, of course. There are some conscientious and humane farmers out there and contractors out there, but by and large, we have wrecked this world and we have treated the animals, and now we even treat ourselves unfit to the way that our ancestors once treated life. And you might say, well, our ancestors were barbaric. They had no understanding of thermodynamics and high civilized Christian morality. And yeah, they didn't understand nuclear fusion or fission or whatever that's called. They didn't understand Newtonian physics, Einsteinian physics. But they understood that they were a part of this earth. They understood that they were one with the land. They understood that animals were their brothers and their sisters. We've lost that. We see ourselves under the scientific mythology of afraid Homo sapiens clinging to a lifeless and an unintelligent rock, trying to survive in a hostile universe, but boldly sending rockets out to conquer the land. It's this shitty mythology that separates us from the land and causes us to live in such a self-destructive manner. Before coronavirus, suicides were up, depression, mental illness up. Now I read suicides are even higher. As dangerous as coronavirus is, as dangerous as everything in life is, right? There's a lot of dangers in life. We're all going to die. I think the most important thing is how we live. Not to stop people from climbing in the hills to look at flowers. Every year, every decade, I see more and more authoritarian control coming down on my local hills. Hills that I once were able to climb at any time. Then I was restricted by hours. Then they put a wrought iron gate. Then they put notices and rangers watching to see who's going on the trail. All for good reasons, but as you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I wonder if we're going to turn this world, this earth, this life, this beautiful gift that we're given. Look at the sun. Look at the leaves. Listen to the birds. And you can't help be filled with awe and wonder and love. But if you don't look at the birds and listen to them and the trees and feel the earth beneath your feet, and instead you watch the messages coming from our culture, from the news media, you're not filled with awe and wonder for life. You're filled with fear. What does fear do to the immune system? Don't take my word for it. Go onto Google. Type in fear, immune system. Find what you find out. And you'll probably see that people who are afraid actually tend to not be as healthy as people who are happy and full of love. You see, stress, fear, all of that negative shit doesn't do anything for you. Makes you act panicky. Look at the best athletes. They go up against the most terrifying spectacles in front of, and competitions in front of thousands or millions of spectators, and they have to conquer that fear in order to thrive in the ring. And then they're in a flow state. That's when we see beauty in motion. The same thing with artists and dancers. Fear, if it overwhelms you, will stultify you, will crush your performance. What is fear doing in our society? What fear does to the individual will also do to the society, because society is an aggregate of individuals. We all affect each other. And yet we cannot climb mountains. We cannot look at the flowers of the hills. For good reasons, apparently. But like I said, what has the government done that has ever been truly good without devastating consequences? Look at what we've done in Iraq and Afghanistan and in Vietnam and in all over the world. We want to do good. We just fuck things up. Government lies to us, but we still believe them. They say, oh, we're not spying on you. Then a whistleblower says, actually, here's the data. Government is spying. And we find out that the very heads of our intelligence organizations that are supposed to be on our side are spying on us. But do we have to always have the government try to do everything for us? Isn't there a point where the child says to mommy and daddy, hey, I got this. Mommy, daddy, please, back up. It's okay. I can choose my own books. I can think my own thoughts. I can live my own life. Isn't that what becoming a full-fledged human is all about? Taking responsibility for our minds, taking responsibility for our actions. But what do we see today? We see local governments putting drones out to watch over the citizens, to make sure. They don't even use police anymore. They're using robots to watch you, to make sure that you are following their orders. And then look what's happening in Russia and China and other countries. Russia's using facial recognition technology. And if they see you walking down an alley, or who knows, taking your garbage cans to the wrong side of the street, they respond extraordinarily quickly. This is all stuff you can look up on YouTube. Stuff that I've got from mainstream news and sources that I trust. And this isn't even the half of it. Governments will use fear to get a larger piece of our life. Parts of our body. They will mandate that they can put chemicals into your body for your protection. Even our body isn't sacred. Look at the government's control of our children and how we raise them compared to what it used to be. I was watching a movie of Clint Eastwood. Him and Morgan Freeman, I forget the name of it. Unforgivable, I think. Unforgiven. Where Clint Eastwood is a pig farmer and he needs to ride off to go earn some money to take care of some ranchers that mistreated a couple prostitutes. And he's got a young boy and a daughter, and he tells the boy, take good care of the sister and the pigs. I'll be back in a couple weeks, and just rides off. Well, today parents won't even leave their quite capable kids at home alone just to go down to the grocery store. We are afraid. We put bars around our house, cameras on the front, and you say for good reason we can't trust our neighbors. Well, the more we distrust them, the more the climate actually affects what we're trying to avoid. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I project all this fear, if I look at my neighbors as devils, then somehow that doesn't make them any more peaceful to me. I feel like we're slowly walking ourselves into a place that we shouldn't go. One step at a time. But as we still have freedom, as we still have access to information, might not always be so. Recently, technology companies are kowtowing to the government and censoring videos for the common good, blacklisting information that they don't want you to know for your own good. But while we still have pretty good access, while we still have a chance to vote, maybe we need to look at leaders and policies that return us to being human, like our ancestors who fought to write the Constitution with those great intellects and those great minds that had sovereignty over themselves. We can choose to be cowardly sheep, or we can choose to be lions. Let's just be humans, caring for our neighbors, and not afraid to tell the government, back up, Mom and Dad, I got it. Back it up, no drones please. In fact, can we vote to ban all government use of drones? On us, especially? We don't want spying. We don't want cameras recognizing our faces. We don't want mandatory injections in our bodies. We don't want you watching over our children, forcing us to raise them the way you want them to be raised. Can you please just trust us? Because if we can't trust ourselves, who can we trust? There's an old Roman saying, and I don't remember the Latin, cus custodes, custodiae, something like that, means who watches the watchers. When you set up a watch to watch us, well, who watches them? Invariably, no one. And they run rampant with control. Who even desires powers and control over others? People who get a fucking kick out of control and power. No, they won't admit that to themselves or to others. They'll say, I'm altruistic, I want to help. But in fact, if you read psychology, what are the great drives of humans? There is a drive to power. There is a drive to love. There's a drive to self-knowledge. But the drive to power is one we always forget. Governments will use it. Governments will use these hard times to cross over the lines of our freedom. Remember September 11th? A tragedy that happened in America. How did we react? Well, there were some positives. Communities came together. People showed more love to their neighbors. I heard New York was unbelievably kind. People were kind to each other in New York. But I also saw a lot of nationalism, patriotism gone wrong. Bumper stickers that said, nuke the Middle East. Racial profiling of Muslims. And then we went in and fucked up the Middle East. And I heard that, some people were friends with the companies and the defense contractors, i.e. government officials, made their friends rich off of it. Can't trust the government wholeheartedly. We got to keep an eye on them, and we got to tell them to back it up. Back it up. I get it. You're trying to help us. You got experts and all of that. Governments used to use priests, religious authority. Now they use science and scientific authority. Doesn't matter if you're coming at me with the religion or science. What I want you to do, back that ass up. Back it up. Don't trample on my freedom. Back it up. This is not a call to disobey the government, but it is a call to be conscious of their effect on us. And I hope that in the future, our children are not slaves of the state, and afraid to live and afraid to thrive and be alive. I wish you guys all a wonderful weekend and a wonderful spring. I hope that you do get to enjoy the hills, and I hope that my message hasn't depressed you. You might think I'm crazy, but I do have an opinion and I do have a perspective, and if I don't voice it, well, I don't know who else will. We are all little eyes of the universe, right? We're all part of this universe. We're all part of the human species, and some of you see it from one angle, and some of you see it from another angle. I see it from a free man's perspective. My name is Ryan Freeman. Nature made me this way, with this perspective, and I will give it to you, not saying that that is the ultimate truth. It is simply the truth from one angle. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please click like or subscribe, and I will see you next time.